or Friday. It probably was Thursday night. Probably was Thursday night.
No, I think it was Friday evening.
See, it couldn't have been because it was in the Friday paper.
Oh, yeah. Oh. By New London? now?
Yeah.
Did they have a name?
No, just had a little thing on the second page. That's one guy got killed.
You get the post present? Waste your money on it?
I like the comics, so I'm okay.
Oh,
that's-
geez. What's it down to? What's it down
Like
to?
3 or
4 pages? Post present, what's it down to? 4 pages?
Some days.
Yeah.
So terrible.
And
The
then
sheriff's report's
they go on and on with one
Been reading
article
it
for 4
lately?
pages.
I haven't,
Oh
I
my
didn't look
God.
at the last one. We give up all the papers.
I was
I look
disgruntled.
on the computer.
I was disgruntled.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it just,
I was
they didn't have it in
disgruntled
there for a
about
really
the
long time.
Packer East, Packer West
Now they
paper.
got,
But
all
they should
the
be
buddy
printing
stuff
one
in there
paper to
too.
keep the money in the county.
whatever.
But the merchants didn't
The
want
thing
it.
is,
Well,
these
Packer,
people
the
think it's
merchants
true.
don't want it.
That's
no
the
more.
sad part. So
The
we're
east side
laughing,
west
laughing,
side.
and
Mm,
somebody thinks they're being
You kidding
possessed
me?
by somebody to go to
What are we
church. It's like,
thinking?
oh my God.
I don't know what, you can't keep up with people anymore. What they want.
It's the merchants.
Okay, I'll call this meeting to order for the Land and Water. It's Monday, August 8th. My thing here at 7:48. This meeting, all the meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted, given to the media, according to Wisconsin statute, so that the citizenry may be aware of time, place, and agenda of this meeting. Roll call will indicate that all members of this committee are present this morning. And you did have, for your pleasure, a review of the agenda. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Supervisor Nygaard made a motion. And Mr. Nelson seconded it. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. And then you also have the minutes from our July meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the July 11th meeting.
Second.
Supervisor Yeager made the motion and Supervisor Wilford seconded it. Any other comments or questions? Call the question. All those in favor of that action signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Public comment, there is nobody else in the room anyway. You have to be present in order to make a comment. I think we'll just keep moving along.
Yeah, and we won't have any federal staff here. Lisa has her staff meeting on the second Monday to avoid our normal first Monday meeting, but that obviously didn't work out. I have not heard from Lori lately, so we got nothing there, but that's fine. We got plenty of stuff other places. So I guess that's back to you guys, supervisor reports.
Craig, did you have anything to add from FSA?
I haven't heard boo from her, and I'm sure that they're just finishing up crop reports.
Oh,
We haven't had meetings the last 2 months.
okay.
I know we don't have any staff left, but
Yeah, that seems to be.
wow.
Thanks.
I attended a conference.
Oh, we'll get that at the end.
At the end.
Yeah, or do we have it early on here?
Seven.
Oh, we got it early today. Okay. A lot of times we have it at the end of the agenda. Well, what some of us did, Cindy did. Cindy was drinking a lot of beer. Oh, I wasn't supposed to
That's why I
report
drink
that.
coffee now.
I wasn't supposed to report that.
Trying to even
She
it
was
out.
just trying to keep up with you.
Go ahead, Ken.
I thought it was very interesting. I got to talk to a lot of caring people. I mean, they wanted me to speak on Brian's behalf because he had to take off. Got some issues.
I did. I had some early Friday morning child issues. So
So, and
get there a little bit.
I wasn't prepared. I said, I have nothing bad to say. Brian's a. But it was very interesting. I talked to a guy from Clark County. And I asked him how it was there with the Mennonites. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
And he says they're the easiest people to work with because they're proactive. They they fix the problem before there is a problem. And that impressed me. Yeah, Chris from Langley County, he has a lot of issues. But we're fortunate we have Brian, and I think Brian is fortunate he has us. And we support him. That's a big thing. A lot of stuff going on, same stuff that we talk about here, a lot of caring people.
You sure, Penny? You stayed for Friday?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you did?
No. Mm-mm.
Because go ahead, say
Did you
it.
go on Friday?
No, I left right.
The only thing I found most interesting was the solar panel discussion. And I didn't realize you didn't have to have permission to put solar panels on people's fields. This doesn't make any I mean, if you got your farmland preservation, and you've got certain areas set aside for farmland, they can just move in and put solar panels on without, asking the county or the townships if that's okay.
We got two people here that are building permits, you shouldn't be talking.
Whether what, they're what? Oh, no, he's from that's different state.
Yeah, I'm with it. That's a different state.
It's a different state. Oh, Lord, yeah.
Yeah, that was put in the legislative, with the WPS backing was, so they didn't have to condemn it and all that. I mean, right or wrong, that's what took place.
So that's what they would have done, if they.
Well, I mean, that's the other option.
Okay,
I mean, that's what you do if a highway wants to go through
Right.
someplace, you
Yeah.
eventually got that ultimate
Mhm.
process. It's a long process and they have tried to avoid that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. but
I was just surprised too with the solars that if they don't ask proper questions, they put all that equipment in the ground. And they might be responsible to take it out themselves with no monetary help after it's all done. And I don't think these people realize that.
Well, they figure they'll be dead.
Was that?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get you. But it was very interesting.
Yeah, they had a couple, 4 or 5 breakouts that
Yep. Mhm.
Thursday afternoon. there.
Yeah.
That could be something that could be written into a contract, I would think, though. that-
Yeah, that's what they're saying that,
Yeah.
but they're not thinking, ahead, they're thinking, they see the money, thinking, wow, this is great. I'm gonna make this kind of money. They don't think about the future.
See, that's when I mentioned, I said in Iowa, the lady said I was only one of 2 that did that. I had that written in. If they ever put a windmill up there,
Sure.
I have a bond now that they gotta take it off.
Yep.
But if you didn't do that, she said, I was only one of 2 that did it. I don't know, you have anything to add on the conference?
Well, I think the morning I missed was probably more interesting to me than the first afternoon. But then afterwards, we always have our ledge admin meeting after lunch on Friday. And I guess the thing of interest there is that it's been decided from an association standpoint that we up our ask to the governor and the legislature
The funding?
for the funding to what the true allocation is, and we haven't really ever done that. But in chapter 92 of the state statutes, it says that DATCAP shall fund us for 100% of the first, 70% of a second, and 50% of third and thereafter positions. And there's always been some argument about whether it stops at the third or it's 50% of the remaining. And DATCAP always publishes those dollar figures on the front of the joint allocation here, which the draft one is out. But the difference from past years is that when it stops at that third position, for next year, it would be 13.5 million statewide in staffing. And if you don't stop at that, it's like 18.7 million. And I think the thought process is that no matter what we ask for, it always gets whittled down. So we're being bad negotiators by starting at a reasonable spot. So we're going to start at a more unreasonable spot this time and see what happens. A lot of that depends on whether the governor writes his own budget or the legislature writes it for him, but we'll see. So.
And you got something on your side, there is a surplus, so at least you got something.
Yeah, I mean, number wise, it looks good, but who knows? Last time what happened is we were about to get the 13 million. And there's a DBA, Dairy Business Association, has a breakaway faction that basically put out a flyer against us and said, you know, this was more government regulation and more government employees, and yada, 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 and that cost us $2 million. So I guess the risky part about that ask is if we would ever get it, you know, then you've just got to be a little bit, whether or not it becomes permanent or it's just in the 2-year budget cycle, kind of depends on what the counties do with it. You know, they're not going to run out and spend a lot more money hiring people if it's only a 2-year venture. And that's part of the argument all the time too. Legislature always wants to know what they're going to get new for that money.
Yeah,
When the statute basically says you should have been giving us this money all along, so giving that to counties. So who knows, but that was probably a different tactic than years past. So. It's readable maybe, huh? All right, so other meeting reports, I guess that was our county con meeting. We were talking about our demo farm project meeting happened usually the afternoon of county board for me. And I guess the only thing new there is that our interseeders finally got delivered last Friday up to Tokens. And I think Wednesday, we're gonna go up there and have a trial of that. This is version 2 from last year, so hopefully it works this time. That money runs through our budget, that grant ran through our budget, so the money's sitting out there, and we'll see that in a few minutes coming up here. To get that spent and not have to carry that over again. So that was really it for that. There is about 3 or 4 field days coming up this fall.
well, I was wondering if
In other
they're gonna have some-
counties, yeah.
any up in our corner where Erickson's or Tokens?
No, it's mostly south this time. I think Winnebago's got one, Fond du Lac's got one, Marquette's got one.
Okay.
And there might be something going on with the Green Lake Association too. That's okay though. I mean, the last 2 years we've been heavy up north, so southern folks can carry the load this year a little bit. Moving on, so we're back to our Golden Sands discussion here from last time. And basically they said pick one person, we can't split this. The only way we can split it is to name 2 members, and then I get booted off. And you'd have to pay for me to have a vote at that point, so that doesn't make any sense.
I'm backing down.
You're backing down.
How much, what's the time commitment?
Well, there's 6 meetings a year, but honestly, if you can make half of them, Jim.
You're
Okay.
closer,
Yeah.
you're a half hour.
It's mostly lake oriented stuff.
Sure.
You know, and they're not truly back to in-person meetings yet either at this point. They've been mostly videos, so
Oh,
they did meet out at some off-site location. Their office is downtown at Point, but last meeting was out at some outside location. But, I've been pretty poor at making them myself lately, so
I'll give it a whirl.
We need a motion,
I think we should.
so they know official. I'll nominate.
A second.
Any other discussion? Just a question for myself. If I ever want to attend one, I can go over.
Sure.
Sometimes I'm nosy, but lately I haven't been.
One of the reasons in my discussion with them about this is they want one person to try it from each county, one supervisor to kind of know what's going on. If they ever get to an issue that gets legislative on any of the stuff they work on for for us, like lake grants and stuff. You know, if they write any letters of support or do any of that stuff, they want county board members signed on to that, staff or.
Didn't a few years back, didn't they have like legislative people show up and then we were there to try to
Yeah,
give our 10 cents worth?
they used to commonly do that. They'd get some of the local Stevens Point legislators to show up and usually it was the federal, was that Ron Kynes
Yeah,
district?
yeah.
So his
I know I was
representative would
too.
show up, yeah. I think in the past there might have been local. Once in a while, they'll get somebody if there's an issue that's relevant, so.
Biggest reason, the chain lakes, they got too many issues over there.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's why I could just see myself.
Yeah.
I thought you being closer, you could handle.
Any other discussion before I call the question? Otherwise, call the question. All those in favor of that action signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Thank you, I think.
We'll find out.
So the next thing up is our vehicle purchase. I think the only thing that's really different this year is that Heidi's now got a new purchasing ordinance. And I guess the first thing that I'll have to clarify with her after the meeting here is she is now the named purchasing agent. I don't know if that means she's going to sign all the purchase stuff or not. I historically did that under vehicles myself. But this under section 16.06, section 3, this qualifies as a small purchase because it's under 50,000. So we needed 3 written quotations, which I think I sent out in an email. That anybody wants to go through those, but let's at least look at the numbers here. So almost all of our vehicles in the last 10 to 12 years have been purchased through Ewald. And the reason for that is they are perennially the state bid holder for vehicles, Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. For example, last year we purchased a new vehicle. So our vehicles are kind of bulked up. We bought a round of new vehicles from 2012 to 2016. And then nothing since then until last year. Now we're back to the start of the 10-year cycle of replacement. So last year we actually got a price from Ewald on all 3 flavors of American truck, and the Chevy and Ford were within $500 of each other. The Dodge, for whatever reason, was like $7,000 or $8,000 more, which is unusual. But
Quality, more quality.
Forget I'm speaking to a room full of Dodge guys.
Dodge has come a long ways. Fuel mileage, my Dodge, my son's got a 22. He's getting 22 miles a gallon. I get 19.4 with a 6.4 Hemi 3/4 ton. Chevs aren't getting that. Fords aren't getting.
So getting back to last year, so the Chevy and the Ford last year were give or take, I ended up purchasing Ford for $31,500. The government discount was like $14,000 on that.
Yeah.
The government discounts are down this year. I think it's like 8,000 if we looked any deeper into the packet I sent you. But we're only looking at Fords for a reason. The 2023 Chevys are all pre-ordered out already. You can't get them. And the Dodges, nobody knew what was going on at all. I couldn't get any promise on any date. So I said, well, we've got all Fords anyway. That's kind of the way we've been rolling here lately. So these are the prices on a Ford F-150 to our normal specs. And I was a little surprised that Bergstrom didn't meet Ewald because they have a fleet program. They have the guy I was dealing with was the fleet manager. He knew exactly what was going on at Ewald. And I kind of figured that the price would be maybe even better because Ewald charges us $150 to drive the thing up here and deliver it. However, that was not the case. Here's what we got in 3 written bids back. The Clintonville thing doesn't surprise me. They've never been able to match these other folks. So this is it. According to our ordinance, we're stuck with the low price regardless. We don't really have a decision to make. I don't know that anybody's got to make a motion here today. I'll take this to Heidi this afternoon. The issue here is that the order deadline for the forest is this Friday. And the last time we ordered one, it took 8 months to get here. Now they claim that's better, but it's still going to be like 3 to 4 months is my understanding. So, and I don't believe them.
I thought half tons of lots were 4.5 tons, with the 3/4 and 1 tons.
I don't know. It's not, but well, keep in mind, we're special ordering these because we need vinyl seats and vinyl floors and a few things. Otherwise, I will never buy a cloth seat truck again in our line of work because the one we have left, you'll never get that smell out.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the smell is freestyle.
You know where you've been.
Yeah, unfortunately, everybody else that gets in it knows where it's been too.
Yeah.
So you do or don't need a motion?
I don't know, I mean, if
Because you gotta take the whole bit.
right, according to the ordinance, this is all cut and dried. I mean, if you want to make a motion, just.
Well, we can do that, then at least I didn't know.
Have at it, so.
I'll make a motion.
Against your better judgment, Ken is making.
Through Ewald.
So second,
Second.
any further discussion? All question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
And I just say, when I bought my last truck, it was $17,000, my Ford truck.
What year was that?
That was a 2000, so it was a while ago. But still, you think about 10 years, that's a lot of money from 17,000 to 44. Holy moly.
But you think about what's going on, I mentioned to Dennis the other night, and his wife were over that, in our township, being the chairman, I get to see, what's going on with homes and stuff like this. I says, I don't even know the person, but the price of their house, how much you think it was?
300,000.
717,000.
Oh my God.
Well, I said to myself, what the heck's going on?
Underwater.
I
This is gonna happen.
mean, what the world's going
Oh,
on?
it's crazy.
Huh?
And I
Well,
haven't
then
even,
you reassess all the other houses.
Well, not keep my taxes down. But I mean, really? To live in a house? Okay, go on.
Yeah,
We're done.
our Zoom just crashed here, so.
I don't understand.
They would paid extra for a stick shift. Can't do that anymore.
No,
They won't make stick
they
shifts
don't make
anymore.
them.
Nope.
Try to get our meeting back here.
It's getting so low, all you're gonna be able to buy is electric trucks.
It seems like they want to force the issue.
2025,
Mhm.
the 3/4 ton will be electric, you gotta buy a 1 ton in order to get it.
So
Gas.
where are you gonna plug that thing in?
Short trips, perfect for farmers, just run to the email back. Sure.
Yeah, so then when I drive to Florida,
Yeah,
it'll take me a week.
it will.
Yeah,
So then when electricity goes off for 3 days,
yes, yep.
yeah, they don't think of everything.
So is anybody living up by Royalton? Because the power went out there Friday.
Oh, did there?
So I was talking to Pat Craig and all of a sudden she just appeared. And she called back and said our power is out.
The running one out.
Did it?
We did, I don't know about it.
Yeah.
Wasn't that what that accident was? With
No, I have nothing,
They get a power, someone get a power pole.
I don't know.
There was a power pole here also.
3 hours.
Oh, that was a,
Yeah, that was
different
on
day.
the corner on T.
Yeah, mine went out too. That was during the day.
It was during the day.
That was,
Right.
oh, it was
Lady hit the pole.
just ironical. My wife had a nightlight on. And it was exactly at 7:15. I was just gonna push the nightlight off and the current goes off. And I said, what power did I?
I got a magic finger.
But anyway, it was off for about an hour and a half, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah, at least close to 2 hours
2 hours?
by us.
All right.
Okay.
We're back alive here. So the next thing up is the American Transmission Company funds. So many of you weren't here long enough to remember what this is about, but in 2008, ATC ran that transmission line through Duane's Township up there in Madison. And because of that, they give us a pretty large sum of environmental money. I think the county got 400-some-thousand.
You realize that his township didn't want it, so we stopped that.
Oh,
Would come right next to my house.
But for 450,000, we didn't join,
how much did the town get to wait for?
400 and something.
So that would still okay. So there was a much larger list than what's up on screen at one point in time of projects that spent that money. We had a few projects in here, the three that are highlighted. Our county rain garden fund up on top that has $4,085 left in it. If you recall, we cost share $600 on a rain garden for riparian owners. So there's enough money in there for some more of those. The next one down is a conservation easement. So when Mike Colas and Greg Blondie started this easement stuff back in '09 as part of our comprehensive planning, they also had a cost share fund set up through, I think the original amount was maybe $75,000. But anyway, there's 17,000 left in that. And then we used to run this money through the Wapaka County Natural Resource Foundation. And there was still $1,103.25 in there. Mark Southers been the treasurer of that also, and he's been trying to clean that up. So he wrote me a check out last Friday that we deposited back in there. So it was really $18,103 and some cents in there. And then the last one of our nature was our baseline well testing, which came about last time we rearranged these projects, and we had stuck $38,512 in there. And we spent about 31,000 of it. So we have 7,500. And if you recall, when we did our ARPA proposal, that we had proposed to spend the rest of that with the ARPA funding. So Heidi, the rest of these projects on here are all John Francis's. There was one that was extension, but they're done with that. So the 14,000 left in there, they have no use for anymore. But you see John's got some bigger sums in a couple of these projects left yet. But Heidi wanted him and I to kind of rearrange our priorities here. I think we have a committee, Dwayne, that's you and Dick and John and I and Heidi.
We haven't met for years.
No, but I think she wants to soon, which is why I'm talking about this, because she would like John and I to rearrange these priorities to get them spent. I think she's, we're now 14 years out on this fund, so I think it's time. So we actually have the one, we haven't cost shared on any easements in a long time. However, we will be spending some money on our Richardson's this year. Our limit there is 4,250. So I guess my proposal would be to leave the $4,300 we need in here and take the rest of that 18,000 that's in the easement program and slide it in for additional well testing. If you recall, when we looked at the well testing, we had some proposals where we could have done more than 600 samples. We could have done 800, would have been another $10,000 or something like that. And I think the way problems are going in our world, the well testing is far more significant use right now. I don't know that we'll ever spend the rest of that 4,500, roughly 12,500 that sit there forever, as the easement scene is really kind of dissipated. Unless you guys have some other thoughts.
I think that the well water testing is a good direction for it.
How does that work? Does the county pay for that?
The well test?
Yeah.
Yeah, last time we did it with the funds that were spent here on screen, at 31,000 on the bottom there. we targeted, at that time, we were trying to target throughout the county evenly, so we tried to get one well test in each section or square mile of the county. Didn't quite work out like that, but we got pretty close. You know, there's like 750 square miles in the county. I think we wound up with 619 samples or something like that. And a few were duplicated just because of the targeting scheme that we used. The proposed well testing this time with the ARPA funds is more or less to focus in the areas that we know have nitrate issues and just try to educate more people as to what their well levels really are out there. I don't think we've got anywhere near the types of problems that our neighbors to the south and west do, but there are some areas that have high nitrates. So.
How do you get on that list if somebody wanted to?
Well, we'll use our data from 2017 and 2018 on GIS to look at where the hot spots were, and then we'll start targeting with GIS through the addressing system around those. We tried to sort out any of the non-permanent homes. I mean, we're not into this to test people's seasonal cabins and things like that. So, you know, outside of that, I mean, if somebody walks in and asks and they're relatively in the right project area, we'll do a well test with them. If that's what you're getting at. If you got anybody that you think has a problem or needs to do that, we'll argue with them over it. So
I haven't really heard. I was just wondering how they did it.
well, and you know, our hot spots are generally the western tier townships and DuPont and a little bit in north of New London. So we'll probably focus on those places.
I think it's good to be proactive. Village in Nelsonville has been kicking the can down the road for years, and now they got some different leadership at the county level, and he's being proactive anyway. It's like we gotta figure out what the cause of this here, not just keep pointing fingers at somebody else and calling names. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. But yeah, it's good to be a step ahead of this and not avoid a lawsuit at some point for somebody too.
And if we had some other wishes or desires to spend this money on, we could create a new project. However, you know, we've got ARPA funding for buffers and ARPA funding for well testing or whatever that becomes based on Heidi's research here. But, you know, as far as our normal work, we don't have any money issues for cost sharing. We're doing all of that. So unless anybody here has a thought on something else they think we should be doing.
So much of our money is going towards the ag side of it that it's all right to do something for the homeowners.
Right. And last time we did this in 17 and 18, I mean, it was received very well. We had some good informational meetings afterwards. We had a lot of good comments. People were very thankful. It was good PR all around, I thought. So
We have a lot of people from that area coming in to Lynn down the artesian well.
Sure.
Huge buckets getting water all the time.
I don't get down that way very often, but every time I do, somebody's
Getting water.
there with their jugs.
So that's
Right?
where we can make some money.
Golf course there, or which one you're talking about?
The one by the Lynn Town Hall.
Right, top hall.
The schoolhouse, yeah.
corner at
There are a couple by New London too.
Yeah, yeah, they're-
Questionable. I don't know if that, how they came out. I never did.
The one on W got shut down.
I think it had some arsenic levels in it.
How often do they sample them that are public?
Every, once a year we do it.
What
We
is
just
the-
did it maybe about a month ago. We still haven't got the paperwork back. So who does the paperwork for that when we test it?
I'm assuming the town, Jed is probably aware of that
Okay.
in health upstairs.
Okay,
I know when the one on W got shut down, Jed was kind of involved with that because so what had happened there was a private citizen had tested that while they were picking water up and it came up high in arsenic, I
Well,
believe.
but, you know, there's Kurt Summers pretty much put that artesian well, pumped it all out. The county stuck some money into it. But Kurt always says he he think it was, if you clean it with a toothbrush, little chlorine, that's gone away. So Kurt was pretty disappointed that got shut down.
Well, that was the other part of that argument, is that artesian on W was in the county owned right away.
Yes.
So I think Diane was concerned that we were liable
Liability there was
for that if anything bad was going on there, so.
We did.
Access still.
We did upgrade it a little bit, put a little platform in there, so we did splashback, was, you know,
But like Jim was saying, I've always said to Brian, it's better to be proactive. We even did that with some of that transmission money prior to the county. I said, we got the money, let's test our water in our township, and people really like that because,
They feel better.
well, not only felt better, but those that had trouble,
Yeah.
gets all the credit.
So I guess we could have a motion here to move roughly 13,500 from easement to well testing.
Okay.
I'll make that a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. So everybody,
And I guess the intention there would be that we would expand our ability to well test a little bit. I mean, as it is now, the ARPA funding or whatever comes out of that, this isn't gonna happen this year anymore. We're getting too far
Right.
along. The testing agencies are booked up. The choices of people that we can test with. And I'd like to use Jed upstairs as much as we can, might as well keep the money in the county. To some degree, although when we do larger samplings, he won't be able to do it because he doesn't have the capacity to do more than about 25 or 30 samples a day. But we, in places that are harder to get to, we may just open this up to people come on their own and get their bottle and take it. And when we do that, we'll do it through second floor. We can't anticipate what they come in.
okay, so you got this first and second?
No.
Jim made it, and go for the second.
I don't know.
Any other discussion? All question, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, hearing none, motion is carried. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing up prior to our budget discussion is we've got a group of grant opportunities here that are all Great Lakes Restoration Initiative related that I think we should approve since I've kind of got them budgeted, or some of them. So the first one came up real recently here. This is kind of small potatoes, but it's an interesting project. So the Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance is another nonprofit group over in Appleton in the Valley that we've worked with a little on and off. Outagamie County Land Conservation works with them significantly more. They're actually into some of their, they've got some $1 million grants for working in Lower Fox that are partnered with Fox Wolf. But they reached out to us here the other day. And they want to do a memorandum of understanding on a grant they have that would actually serve most of the northeast counties here, from us and Shawano over to Lake Winnebago and up to Green Bay and in the Wolf Basin. And they're proposing basically to give us $100,000 for take that back, not $100,000, $10,000 for to work with a single farmer. I don't know that they've necessarily limited to us, but that was their proposal over a 2-year time span to do cover crops, specifically with some multi-species hopeful. And then the intent here was for them to do a little bit more research on that. They've left us about 10% of this or $10 an acre in staffing, so that we'd be able to recover some money if we wish to for working on this. If you can read the fine print down here, there's 9,000 to the farmer and 1,000 to the conservation department. So basically it's a $10,000 grant to work with somebody on cover crops. And, you know, my reply to them was to try to work in conjunction with our demo farm project, since we're already doing similar type of work. But they've got 100,000, I think, in this grant to work with up to 10 counties in northeast Wisconsin. And I don't see any reason not to do this. I mean, they're essentially doing the paperwork. We just need to find a cooperative, another cooperative farmer that wants to, and we have no shortage of people that want to do cover crops. Just you know, a little bit of the extra work with it, and maybe some field day type stuff. So that would be our first opportunity. And they want to sign this yesterday. If you saw the dates here. I don't know at this point if this will get done in time to work with somebody this year. I mean, we're right on the edge of cover cropping season coming to fruition here. So I think that's why they want to hurry up and do this, so we have a chance at getting the first of 2 years being this year, 2022. But in their narrative, it doesn't have to be. If it doesn't work out, it could be next 2 years.
Are they looking for somebody kind of on the eastern side of our county, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, because our entire county is in the Wolf Basin, so I don't think they
I was
care. I think a farmer that wants to go a step further than the average guy is probably what they're looking for more than anything. So got a few people in mind for that. So I don't think location matters as much, since it's a multi-county job.
You need a motion?
Yeah, I think why don't you take these one by one, or you want to do them all together?
Let's do them all together.
All right, so that's number one. The second one we've been working on for over a year with DNR. So the second two are through DNR, but they're federal Great Lakes grants. Make this a little bigger too. So this is a project with Outagamie County. The county line is where the color change is here. Working in Bear Creek. So roughly we got half, slightly more than 50% in our county, slightly less than 50. But DNR had some leftover GLRI funds, and they proposed giving $40,000 to each county, $80,000 total, for a soft practice grant. So the soft practices would be the three things covered in yellow here. This was just a real quick 2-page grant proposal that we had written to DNR a year ago, but they have now told us this money is coming. I don't know. My guess is it'll be a September 1st start date, because that's the federal calendar fiscal year. But the three practices would be cover cropping, basically no-till or reduced till. And then a new one here that's been happening more and more is the low disturbance manure application. I think we've seen pictures of that. We've had some field days on it recently. So those would be the three things. The rates are, our cover cropping rate would be set with our yearly rate. Outagamie actually set the rates because they've got other grants where they've been doing this. So it's $25.05 an acre for no-till right here. And then the total cost share for the low disturbance is $74.08 an acre. They've spent the time to actually figure out what the cost is to do this, so we kind of relied on their research for it. we want it to be consistent across the project, despite the county lines. So I don't have a grant document on this, but in talking with DNR about this project and the next one that we're looking at, they have said it's coming. So I will turn that one off and now get to the real big one here. So this is the, let's make this a little bigger too. So this is a significant grant, as you can see here, that's $409,850. This is over a 3-year time span, actually 3.25 years. Find the dates here. I'm gonna scroll down to the, here's our date. So this would actually start October 1st of this year. However, I told Heidi for budget purposes, I have zero intention of spending any money in 2022, so we wouldn't have to amend our 22 budget. What's happening here is this grant is for the Bear Lake watershed, of which we're in year 3 of our 4-year trim grant for that same watershed. This grant is meant to pick up for year 5, 6, and 7 without having to go back to the well for another trim grant, which takes over a year to do. So then we were told the other day that this has been approved. I'm just waiting on the grant paperwork. So I had Heidi create a new budget module for it because it's federal money, not state money. So we can't really stick that in the same module for Bear Lake that we've been using state trim funds. But I did budget about 1/3 of it for next year. I'm basically looking at it as a January 1 of 23 to December of 25, so a straight 3-year grant. We had a lot of pretty pictures and narrative here. Here again are some maps out of our 9 key element plan for Bear Lake. And we'll get down to the important stuff here. So this is the grant document here, and basically 87,500 of this is for staffing. So there's a fairly big staffing component. The bottom line here where it says contractual, that's the actual cost share amounts. So as you can see, out of the 409, 322 of it's cost share. The other 87.5 will be staffing grant money. So roughly about $28,000 to $29,000 a year we can recover in staffing grant, which is about what we've been pulling out of the Bear Lake trim grant. So that'll kind of continue that fairly well for us. So just another breakdown. Again, what this covers, now this covers the same 3 things we just talked about with Bear Creek: cover crops, no-till, and low disturbance manure application. That'll be the bulk of it. However, this one also provides money for harvestable buffers and for other field practices like waterways and sediment basins, diversions. The only thing it does not provide money for would be farmstead related ag waste stuff like manure storage or barnyard. There's no funding in here for that, but quite honestly, for the most part, we've been through those in the Bear Lake area. We've got 2 more of those scheduled either this year or next year, hopefully with our current grant. And barring the craziness of prices and construction, I'm hoping to get those done and not have to worry about that stuff going forward. So there it is. To sum it up, we've got a $10,000 joint grant with our friends over at Fox Wolf Alliance. We've got a $40,000 grant for soft practices in Bear Creek. And then we've got this $409,000 grant over a 3-year period with staffing funds for Bear Lake again. And I do,
Those are the three.
those are the three.
That's a sizable amount of money, 450,000. So we're gonna need a motion to approve all three of them.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any other questions or comments? All question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried.
Honestly, this was, I mean, we've been working on it with DNR, and, you know, the 8-page proposal here actually was quite a few months ago. But this was far easier than going after a trip grant, so we're happy to see that. A lot of this staff time on our part.
How long has you been working with DNR on this?
Well, we started, they had to do a pre proposal for this just about a year ago now. I think it was actually September-ish last year. And the proposal had to get approved before we could do this. So we worked with them on the pre-proposal. And then they came back to us maybe 3 to 4 months ago and said that had been accepted and that we were kind of number one on the list to get this funding in the Northeast region here. So then we had to shine this up with a little more narrative than was in the pre-proposal. And honestly, a couple of folks at DNR, you know, Dan and I did some work on this and we came up with the budget schedule, but we sent it back to DNR and they did all the polishing on it and sent it in. So it's through them. I don't know exactly what the grant agreement will even look like. And I'm talking to Eric from DNR the other day. He said he's not sure either. It could be almost contractual between us and DNR, or it could be more grant-like between us and GLRI. We're not sure yet. This is a first for them. The particular way the funding is being routed is kind of a first time for them. So there's a lot of GLRI grants out there. Our friends in Outagamie have been making a hauling out of these for a couple of years now, like 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, Greg's probably got several million of these in Outagamie, but they were available for the lower Fox far longer than they've been available for the upper Fox Wolf. So
what about Brown County? Do they get involved?
a lot of the ones that Outagamie has crosses the line because they're working together on those projects. Outagamie generally administers them. And then Brown County's got one staff, the guy that works on the demo farm projects. He's really good. I maybe heard him speak at conventions before, Brent Peterson. Really sharp guy. So he's involved a little bit from Green Bay side, I think. But I don't even know the scope of what they all are. I can recall going back to 2014, 2015. I think Outagamie got their first one of $1 million at the time. That was pretty unheard of. So
Yeah.
Okay. Let's find a budget here. I put a paper copy in front of everybody in case you. I figured this was important enough to warrant killing a few trees. All right, let me see if I can make this just. Really bad. Over here. All right, that's about as big as I can get it on screen. So, again, for those of you that are newer to the budget documents, the highlighted stuff on the right side in yellow is really the column that we're working in here. The other columns are some historic data. We also look a fair amount at the 2022 adopted budget or amended budget. In our case, the only difference between 2022 adopted and amended is that 52,000 some odd dollars left for that equipment purchase. We carried it over from last year, and I was working with Sherry on that. And for some reason, she stuck it back in here, so it makes our amended budget look 50-some thousand dollars bigger, but that's actually capital money, so it really kind of doesn't belong here. Anyway, starting from the top though, our first 2 pages here are our revenue. So as we look down the lines here, the very top line is our DAT cap staffing grant, 165,542. That's up a little less than $2,000 from last year, just normal. Normally it increases $1,000 or $2,000 a year. The next line is our wildlife damage. I had 14,000 in here the last couple of years. I dropped it down to 12,000 because we lost all of our venison processors last year. And normally there was 3,000 in that budget to pay for venison processing in the donation program. I left $1,000 in there just in case we'd happen to pick somebody up between now and fall. I don't anticipate it though. There was some changes here at Nemitz. And then the guy at Iola had gotten in trouble with the DNR and then the front and kind of said the heck with it. So I don't expect anything, but I left some in there. The third line down is our harvestable buffer money from DAT cap. I really didn't think we were going to get much of that this year, but they had more leftover funds than they thought. And they funded quite a bit of people that participated in that leftover grant pool. Last year we had 30,000. They actually gave us 45,000 again for this year, which you can carry into next year if needed. I'm sorry, this is actually for 23. It could carry into 24 if needed. So next line down is our demo farm grant from the feds, from NRCS. That's actually a 5-year grant that did quite a bit of research on it last year and came up with 108,000. We've underspent that a little the last 2 years because the cost sharing part of it with the 10 farmers hasn't been quite there. But my understanding is we've got 3 or 4 of those projects on the books right now. So we're going to see, we should see that amount get spent. But that money is like a lot of our grant columns here, it's money in and money out. So other than the staffing grant, all of these cost shares are just reimbursement. So if we don't spend that amount, we don't get it. If we spend more than that, it comes out of next year's. We can carry some of them over, other ones we can't. But the cost sharing is just really doesn't affect our budget other than, to give us more cost sharing. So the new program that you just approved, the new Great Lakes Restoration Grant, is this next line at 136,617. And basically I just took 1/3 of that $409,000 grant and plopped it in there. It's going to be a little tricky because next year is year 4 of the trim grant in that same watershed. But year 4 is an extension. This is year 3. Normally the grants are supposed to be 3-year for the trim grant, large scale trim grants. But that was the last $1 million one they ever gave out. And we're going to have money left over next year. The question is how much, and how much depends on how much of this 136 we spend next year. So we may underspend this if we have more trim left over. If we have less trim, and the reason we'd have less trim, it comes back to this year, this current year, and what we spend. So if we spend a lot this year, we're going to definitely run out sometime next year, and then we'll start eating into this 136,000 as that grant takes over somewhere in year 4 for year 5. So for lack of a better idea, I just took a third of it. I doubt we'll overspend more than that. I think in the following years we could, but we'll have a better handle on it after next year. Moving down, the 80,000 is the nutrient management money, which is also used for cover cropping. 50% of it can be for cover cropping. That's up $5,000 from last year. DAP gave us 75,000 last year. The year before, I think they gave us 95,000. So it fluctuates a little. The 3,000 under it is somewhat of a placeholder. This is for DNR lake grants, which would be the Healthy Lakes Riparian grants. We didn't have any last year. We've got 2 of them on the books from previous that we've got to finish out. I expect we're going to have some of these. The grant deadline is in December for these, and Dan spoke to a pretty good crowd out at the Chain of Lakes Association here back at the end of May, was it? And he's had quite a few callbacks on the Healthy Lakes project. So I'm guessing we'll have 2, 3, maybe 4 of those projects for December's grant deadline. And this is sort of their placeholder. Moving down, we're to another DAT cap fund. This is the hard cost share for construction items. You know, they don't give us very much, but the beauty of this is it's very flexible. You know, we can use this on a moment's notice. We don't have to write other grants. It's up a couple thousand. They gave us 3,000 more than last year. But again, that's money in, money out on cost share. The next line below it is our small scale trim, which we were awarded 1 for 2023. That award was for Blunkshan's farm up northwest of Dennis there. Now that I'd been after the father for years ago. They've got some issues there with manure management. Now that the kid took over, he's been interested. So we wrote a grant. He'll also be applying for funds from Lisa just because this stuff is horribly expensive.
Every town monthly meeting, there's brought up complaints about this.
Right. There's been issues with manure on the road. That's actually what started some of this. So the thing about this, so, you know, these small scales are 2-year grants. This would be year 1 of this. I don't know that we're going to be ready to build this next year. I put it in here because if we do, I don't want to come back to do a grant amendment to our budget. But I'm a little, as we'll see later, I'm a little cautious on the fee money from this project.
Because if it doesn't get there.
Yeah, because I think it's more likely at this point, this might be a 2024 project. Maybe not. I mean, Kurt's excited. He wants to do something. It's just that the federal funding has to come through. And so you guys are giving each other looks, and I know why.
Don't cross.
Yeah, well, we lock our doors up there too. So.
Just so you know, if I leave in a few minutes, I got emergency planning and vice chair.
And then the next line is our large scale trim. And you'll see I dropped this down quite a bit from last year, but that's because of this 136,000 coming in. So that if you add that into that, we're sort of back at the level we were at last year at 545. Now, of that 398,000, 48,000 of that is predicted to be staffing grant. So you'll see that come out of the budget in a later line. These next few lines are just some standard fees. We get a little bit of money from zoning for doing their shoreline zoning mitigation stuff. Talking to Jason, it looks like there's starting to be a decline in permits. He said septic permits are starting to decline. So where we've way overspent that, or we've way overspent is the right word. We've over received money from them in the last 2 years. Right now, when you look at the 6-month actual, I think we'll probably be lucky to hit 4,000 here at the rate they're going now. So moving down to this block, this is kind of our main, other than the top one here. The top one is the multi-discharger variance. That's a cost share. I upped it. We have no control over even knowing how much we get, but we went from 7,500 a year ago to 12,000 this year. So I bumped it up in our budget from 5,000 to 10,000. I have no idea whether that'll be the same next year. It all depends on whether these for us, it's the town of, the Poisippi Sewer District down in Washera and the Sarah Lee over in New London, the meat plant, are the ones that are funding this. Yeah, and Sarah Lee went up huge this year. They had been like 6,000, went to like 12,000 this year. I mean, that all depends on how much they pollute each year. We just don't know that, so. This is our trim fees, up a little bit from last year, but like I said, I'm nervous to put another 12,000 in there for that luncheon grant. Our DAT cap fees are up a little just because their cost share is up. And then farmland pres should be another down year. Next year will be, or the year after will be back up 5,000. Our rental fees, 3,000. Moving down, this 28,000 is the money we get from the other 7 entities that participate with us. I'm sorry, this is the tree program money, 28,000. So that's our tree income. The 32,000 below it is our money coming in from our other counties for the demo farm project. So when I invoice them at the end of the year, that's that.
I'm gonna take off, but I did look at the budget. Where it is.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line when we get to it is we're about 5% over, but that's all due to staffing and insurance
Pretty much.
increases, and it's really hard for us to control that. So,
I'll be meeting with Heidi around 10:30. Okay.
so moving on, that's the end of the revenue. So if you look at that bottom corner, we got 1,344,334 in revenues predicted. That's up just a little bit from last year. We were at 126. Some of that's a crapshoot. You know, if we don't get that much revenue, we also won't spend that much. I think at the end of the year, we're usually pretty close to meeting the county levy, or we've actually been below it. We'll look at that at the end. So now we get into our expenditures. These top few lines are just, actually, this is the deer program first. So the thing to look at is the 12,000 down here in the corner. That was that same 12,000 up on the first or second line of the income. Then you get into this pink box, which is supplied to us by personnel and finance. I can't control any of this, but if you will notice, salaries are up from 421 to 441. So we've got just a little more than 20,000 increase in salary for 6 1/3 people. And then if you go down to the bottom of that, you see that last year we were at 555,528. And this year that's up to 582,840. And I have a note over on the side. That's an increase of $35,391 or almost 6.5% increase just to the staffing and insurance. So those are things out of our control, but that's the number we kind of try to chase the whole budget around for us. So moving down past that, these next couple of blocks are just our operational things. We've got contracted services. A lot of that's the Golden Sands. We added some for water sampling. We have our cell phone, our telephone. Most of that's unchanged. I actually lowered the contracted services because since we hired Taylor, some of the things we used to do by contract, she's now doing. So I expect that to continue to go down. We do spend 8,000 or 9,000 a year generally with Golden Sands with contracted items they do for us. Otherwise, we're down into, you know, postage, photocopying, pencils, pens, all that kind of stuff. I changed our dues and our registrations around a little bit just to reflect reality. It didn't change the amount. Between the two, they were 7,000. They're still 7,000. That would be these two blocks up on screen there. Otherwise, our operating supplies, we bumped that up a bit last year. Last year, I overexpended that, but that's because we were able to get savings for buying our AutoCAD in a 3-year increment. So we should see dividends on that the next 2 years. Our tree program expenditures in here, that's 24,000. If you recall, we had 28,000 of income on that, so we roughly make $4 or $5 grand a year on our tree sale. The one item that I did raise here, I took $300 out of this other educational, and we just don't use that. But I did raise our vehicle fund up. We had $8,000 for basically gas and maintenance on 6 vehicles. And with gas this year, that's been a problem. Although we'd be close, the real problem here is we're getting into the trucks that are in their 7th, 8th, 9th year. They all need a new set of tires, and that's about $1,000 a pop out of this fund. So I'm expecting a little of that next year. Insurance, things of that nature. If I bring it all the way down, so if you see these lines here, the outlay lines, there's nothing there, but you see that 52,450, that was that number I've spoke of before. That's the rest of that implement purchase that Sherry stuck into our budget. That's the difference between amended and adopted for 2022. But it's really a capital outlay, so it doesn't really affect operating at all. But if you're looking at the amended line instead of the adopted, that's the whole difference down at the bottom. If you look just below that, you see some lines that are 910, 920 cost allocations in and out. This is the money coming back into our home budget module, which is this 56,203. Those are the dollars coming in from our trim grants for staffing. So that's 62,000 in parentheses there, up from 54 last year. But that basically pays the bulk of that last position we added Taylor a year ago. Underneath it, you see the 56,208 Great Lakes Restoration Module. Heidi's got a note on the side there. This is new program. That is that 136,000 that we spoke of in revenue, broken down into the 128 cost share and the 8,000 of staffing. At least that's my prediction on it. Partly because we need to use up the staffing in the trim grant this year, next year first. So. Then we get into expenditures here. This is the 96,000 is our demo farm, along with the 11 and the 38. It's for a total of 145,000 in the demo farm module. That includes that 96,000 is our contracted employees. So we have a contracted agronomist that covers all 8 counties or 8 entities in the demo farm project. And then we've got the cost share spending and the operational stuff as part of that 145. So basically, the county contribution to this project is 1/9 of 25%. So if you take the 145,000, NRCS pays 75% of that. The other 25% is split between the 8 entities, and because Fond du Lac actually has 2 projects, it's 9 entities. So we pay 1/9 of 25%. Which has come out, I think last year was $3,300. That was our county commitment to that project for the year. Moving on, we get into the trim program module here. You got our large scale and our small scale. That's the 350 and the 225,000 that we saw up in the income on page 1. And then below it, you see a $48,000 cost allocation. That's the staffing money coming back out of that. The next module is that multi-discharger variance. That was the 10,000 coming from Sarah Lee and Poisippi next year predicted. That'll be the expenditure of it. Then we move on to 56,212 is our buffer program from DATCAP. That's the 45,000 they'll be giving us. Below that is nutrient management. That's the 80,000 from DATCAP. Then we've got a couple of blank lines of some stuff we haven't used. And then we get into that DNR Lake grant at 3,000. And then more DAT cap money, that's the hard practice implementation there, LWRM on 56,217 of 63.5. And that's kind of the end of it. Then our totals are there. So we've got a total expense of 1.722 million. And we've got a total revenue of 1.344 for a difference of $378,523. So if you go back along the bottom, if you look up on the screen, if you can't see that, but I'm looking at the 2022 amended budget. Our county levy was 360,094. That would be the fifth block from the right there. Or if you look, so that's our difference. Basically, we went from 360 to 378, and that is all because of the staffing increases. So I've got these little colored blocks at the very bottom. I think they printed out. The staffing raised our budget by 9.83%, or it would have raised our county levy to 395,485 in the blue box. And that's because of that 35,391 that staffing went up. We were able to reduce that 35 down to the 18,429 in green because we've got pretty good revenues this year for staffing, which takes us down to a 5.12% increase. We weren't given any instructions by Heidi. Mostly in recent years, our instructions have always been to get to 0% plus the staffing, but that would have been a nearly 10% increase for us. So we were able to whittle that about half to 5%, but it's still an increase of 18,000. But that's where we sit until somebody tells us otherwise. I'm fairly happy with that. The problem with the staffing increases is if we have to bring that to zero in our budget every year, eventually we're going to lose something because we can't, we get increases in revenue, but they don't match our staffing. Some years we do pretty good. Last year, I think we actually were close to zero with this because we had some really huge increases in staffing.
Your staffing is only half of inflation.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do to control it. I know Mandy is advocating a 3% raise on the pay scale this year just because of the inflation and where the pay scale is at. She's very concerned we're going to be behind. And then most of these employees are also seeing that 2.25% step raise. So you're looking at employees with a 5.25% increase next year. And we're still not keeping up with 40 personnel, but that's about as good as it's getting for government. So anyway, that's where we're at. We definitely need a motion for this.
We need a motion on the proposed budget here.
I move to approve the proposed budget.
I'll second. Thank you. Moved by Supervisor Wendowski, seconded by Supervisor. Yes. To approve the proposed budget for 2023 as printed. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Sorry about that. I've got mother in the hospital. Thank you for that. Next thing on the agenda here.
I did actually send out a sheet this time with contracts because we're getting to that point here in August and September where we have a lot of cover crop contracts.
Looks like they're all from the same area.
They are, at least at this point, next month, we'll see more in the Shaw Creek, but those are first timers. So the contracts take a little longer. The Bear Lake folks, we're in the third year with this, so they're pretty easy, but the Taylor and Stefan have been pretty much working on contracts here for the last couple of weeks on these bigger ones, so that's where we're at. These should be approved for cost share. And I likely will see a bigger list next month. I think last year we did it all in one and it was nearly a page long. But, pretty typical. We got 2,021 acres in Bear Lake. I think we'll probably end up with more like 2,500 acres after next month. Wyawega, we should see at least one or two more. We don't get as much participation there. And we don't have any of the Shaw Creek ones up yet, although we've had pretty good interest. I expect a number of acres there.
What was the deal with Jomley? They sold the cattle to Quantum, and they're doing the cropping?
Jomley sold the cattle and the buildings to Gonzalez.
Gonzalez.
And Scott has a 10-year agreement to do the cropping.
Okay.
Having said that, one of the other agreements we'll expect here will be from Breezy Hill or Steve and Scott Bartle, but they are selling to Quantum. That's in the works right now. Again, buildings, not the cattle. Cattle are selling on their own, I believe. Quantum's going to bring dry cows into their facility. My understanding was Quantum was about to build a dry cow facility, and obviously the costs of that are probably horrible. And then Steve and Scott are getting to that age. They must have had a little discussion, and that's the direction it went. So
yeah.
The interesting part of that is that will make Steve and Scott's facility fall under the CAFO rules here. So not that they were doing anything bad necessarily. We've done a lot of work there with them over the years, but they will fall under the zero runoff rules and have to get engineering inspections from the state. All the things that have to happen at Quantum will eventually have to happen there. So I expect 20 years from now that almost every farm we work with will be in that exact same position.
Yes.
Through the consolidation we keep seeing. So we should have a motion there, I guess.
Someone would like to make a motion to,
Now, is that for this or the Shaw Creek?
it's just this one.
This Shaw Creek we'll have a list of them next month, yeah.
Just scroll it down again so they see the top.
Yeah, these are all Bear Lake
Bear
ones
Lake.
here, and then the
Yeah.
one Wyawega with Jomley, so mostly because they were existing ones that were easier to get done up front, so.
So the motion will be for the Bear Lake cover crop contracts and the Wyawega Lake cover crop contracts with those farms listed. Moved by Supervisor Yeager, second by Representative Feetzer. I tell you, I'm sorry about that.
We know who you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Other things for me to report, there's been not much movement with our DNR actions. We are scheduled to go back out and see Mr. Iwart on his notice of discharge here in a week or two. Supposed to have done that last week, but the DNR guy had COVID, so. I missed the management team update because we were at the Land and Water conference. But we'll have another one of those this Thursday. I guess the other thing to mention there is, Heidi pulled the resolution off last month at County Board for ARPA. That was because she found some rules about bidding, some federal rules about bidding projects, and our projects were actually part of the issue there. Obviously, the cost share for harvestable buffers would not be bid, the farmer's doing that himself. So she's doing some shell games with the funding there. What she's looking at doing is to take some of our larger projects on the CIP budget. I know John Francis has one for like $500,000 to upgrade the PTF. They're gonna take and fund that with ARPA and then use that 500,000 to backfill some of our smaller ARPA proposals that don't fit these bidding rules.
Sure.
That the auditors have came in and said that we probably should be following. Our well testing could be bid. We've got entities to bid that. But I wanted to use JED as much as I could, and I just kind of said, yeah, that's a small enough project, we won't worry about that. We'll fund that out of county CIP funds too, so.
Okay.
I don't know if we're gonna see that back at county board this month, if she's worked her way through that or not, but that was kind of why it was pulled off. I guess none of us really knew why it was pulled off, the details, but it had to do with some suggestions the auditors or financial folks have made to Heidi about the bidding in ARPA, so.
Better to catch it on the front side.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's it, other than an upcoming meeting date, and
I have one thing I wanted to bring up. Honest, but in that meeting point, it did bring up, they have some kind of way, it's something County that how they clean the algae. Where they're taking the algae off the lake and running it through a purifier of some sort. But I didn't get, I only got a little tail end of it, but I thought it was good progress.
there's also a similar project in Green Lake right now. There's a marsh where the incoming stream comes into Green Lake, I believe. I don't know my Green Lake geography real well, but they're catching algae and duckweed and harvesting some of that out right now too, I believe. So
There's signs of improvement, and people don't think there is, but there is. You know, with a little lake, Learmore, I think they, like in the Fox, you got some of those channels. It's terrible. It's green, it stinks. And maybe that's what you're gonna need more of.
by and large, we're still at the mercy of Mother Nature quite a bit. So
Well, you get your hot dry.
yeah, and then you get these big rains like we may have more of today or whatever. We had, you said 3 something. I only had 1.5.
Yeah, it was a monsoon again.
Yeah, ours came hard too, but man, I was glad it quit at 1.5. So probably 8-9 miles south of you yet. So
I don't care how good your roof is. You always find a leak at that point.
Oh, my, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I'm okay there yet. Anyway, the first Monday of September is the holiday. So I would assume we'd be back the second Monday, which would be the 12th. And unfortunately, Dwayne left before.
Is he gonna have the same?
Actually, no, I
No,
was
that's-
just running off to emergency management.
That's not-
So then we should be able to be at 8:30. Yeah, because that's only every other month.
What was your date now?
September 12th.
September 12th, which is the second Monday at 8:30.
I got LGAS, but they went back to 10 o'clock.
Right. We should be done by then. Matter of fact, I'm going on vacation Monday, the 21st of August. We won't be back to the 31st. The significance of that is that's a Wednesday. The following morning, I have till 10 o'clock to get this agenda in for the 12th,
Oh, yeah.
right? No, I'm sorry, I'm off a week. That would be if it would be on the following week, so that's good. I was thinking I'd have to have my agenda pre-built, and that's an awful lot of downtime between now and then. That won't be the case.
Colorado, Alcott.
Glacier National Park.
I've heard a lot about the.
Not Death Valley? Not Death Valley?
No. What'd you say, Sid?
A lot of people have been going there the past.
Yeah, I hear it gets kind of crowded, but we're hoping this week is the drop off.
They've all said wonderful things.
So Yellowstone, they're back in operation, or don't know?
Maybe we should adjourn. So.
Yep, okay,
Yeah, all right.
So 8 o'clock on the 12th?
8:30.
8:30.
8:30.
Works for everybody.
That's it, then we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.